Hello and welcome to the FPLScope. I am one of your hosts, Mathias, and as you might have noticed already, my background is a bit different from what we usually do. That's because I'm not in Oslo at the moment. I am in London visiting my good friend Kevin. We are celebrating his 30th birthday. 29th birthday. It's pretty much the same. He's pretty much 30 now, but I'll let him introduce himself and speak first. So here's Kevin. We only have one mic this week, so I'll pass on the mic to Kevin, who's right here next to me. So here you go, Kevin.
Yes, I feel very tentative about turning 29, but yeah, I guess 29 and 30 is the same thing, but for a final last hurrah for the 20th or 20s. Yeah, going to be doing a big celebration, and luckily Mathias was able to come. Obviously, Chemo was invited and all this type of things, not to be like, oh,
when you're 30, when you're 30, then I'm coming for sure.
Okay.
Next year, London. Here you go.
Yeah. And we're also planning a trip to Barcelona as well, so that could be a fun mega trip that we can do. But yeah. Birthday coming up on Saturday, and Everton play with
Usman Dembele. That's gonna be fun.
Oh yeah, definitely, and hopefully Messi will be back in the club as well, which is a pipe dream at this rate. But yeah, but I'll give it back to the host.
Yeah, and I'll basically send her over to Chemo or introduce yourself.
And I'm not gonna introduce myself so much. I'm really jealous to see you both in London. Would have loved that we have had this episode together, but it's gonna be fun. I think so. Looking forward to the debate. So,
Definitely. Yeah. We'll get to that pretty soon. First, we're just gonna talk about the elephant in the room, which is the error code that some of us got right before deadline last time in the FPL. And personally, I tried to do Foden to Almiron, but the website crashed, so I wasn't able to do it. I immediately tweeted that I wasn't able to do the transfer, so this is not some sort of like retcon. I was always planning to do this transfer. I said this right after the deadline passed, that I was going to do Foden to Almiron, but it didn't work. Obviously, Foden got 1 point, Almiron got 13 points, so that was a big swing for me. 12 points that I missed out on, but more people have had the same issue. I can take some blame as well. I was actually out and about when the lineup news happened that Foden wasn't going to start. So if I was in front of my computer ready to go, I probably would have been able to do the transfer straight away. So
I know the feeling very well. It's pretty devastating because I think in game week 3 I had saved my 2 transfers for the first 2 game weeks, and I was ready to buy Perisic for the first game week he's gonna start. And I overslept on the couch, and I woke up like 2 minutes after the deadline, so I didn't do that. So it's really devastating. So
yeah, we've all been there. So yeah, I've had there were a couple other things in the game week that also annoyed me. Mainly Gabriel Jesus getting only 9 points. I shouldn't complain about 9 points, but he could have had so much more. I'll talk about that more in detail later. But before we talk about Jesus, we're going to talk about Judas instead, because as we've been teasing for the past few podcasts, Kevin and I have had a disagreement for the last 3-4 years. During the 18-19 season, we had 2 different outlooks on 2 different stories. Towards the end of that season, that was a hotly contested season where me and Kevin were fighting for the number 1 spot in our mini league. I came out on top, obviously, and Kevin will say that's because I did something wrong. I'll say that he did something wrong before me and I didn't do anything wrong, but I will not get too much into it before I'll let Kevin speak on the subject. I'll be the bigger man and let him talk first and introduce both stories, and then afterwards I'll correct the record and tell you how it actually happened. So yeah, here's Kevin, and Chemo will be the judge, of course. So Kevin will go ahead first and talk about what happened in both the Aubameyang case and the Hazard case.
Okay, for starters, I am not as prepared as Mathias is when it comes to this, so I don't have all the stats and everything written down because A, I'm not a loser, B, I don't really care because it's past and gone, and also a lot of the records are not there because we did a lot of this over the phone, we did a lot of this over chat and all this type of stuff. So for me personally, I feel like we both did something wrong, and I'm more than willing to admit that. The difference is Mathias is completely just, oh, you're in the wrong, what you did was wrong, and what I did was nothing. I just played the game. Whereas I believe we both did something wrong. I personally believe the Hazard thing was worse, but fair enough. We'll get to the story. So basically, what happened was there was this game week where Mathias came to me asking me about FPL advice, as we both talk to each other all the time about this type of stuff, right? And it was the season where it was very highly contested between the two of us, where Mathias and I are the type of people who actually share like our future plans and stuff like that. Whilst I know a lot of managers who don't like discussing stuff, who keep it to themselves and all this type of stuff.
I'm that kind of person usually.
Yeah. Fair, which is fair enough, which is more than fair enough. But I think we're close enough friends, and we're not usually that competitive in terms of FPL to like purposely sabotage or anything like that. So what ended up happening was Aubameyang was in a good purple patch. I believe Aguero had just gone crazy with hat tricks and stuff like that against Chelsea, Arsenal back in 2019. And
I remember the season.
yeah. So I believe I sold Aguero either due to an injury or something like that to get Aubameyang in. Or something like that. I don't remember the finer details, but essentially what happened was I sold Aguero and got Aubameyang, or I already had Aguero and had the money to facilitate a move for Aubameyang, who I had just told Mathias to sell. And I told him to sell Aubameyang simply because he was meant to get in Aguero, who was in much better form than Aubameyang was. The reason I brought Aubameyang in was because I had tickets to Spurs Arsenal the week after the transfer or something like that. So for me, it was, I'm one of those type of guys that when I do transfers, I sometimes do transfers if I'm going to watch someone live. So like, for example, I once back in 2011 brought in Van Persie against Wigan. And that was the first time Van Persie ever had a hat trick for Arsenal. And I brought him in, captained him, and he got 30 points or whatever.
You saw the game. You saw the game live.
Yeah. So I saw him actually live against Wigan. So I saw Aubameyang live against Spurs away. So for me, the reason why I brought Aubameyang in the end was because I could facilitate a move for both, and I was going to see him live. The reason I told Mathias to get rid of him was because Aguero had the better. At the time, we didn't have XG and stuff like that. It was more of like a feeling thing, right? Where we were just like, it's more obvious that...
I know where is this going, so...
I like Aubameyang is the better move and all this type of stuff. And that's, to me, what happened with Aubameyang. Now, I don't know if I should move to you so you can say the Hazard thing, or should I just continue and say the Hazard? Do the Hazard. Okay, fine. Then, after many game weeks later, comes a point where it's like crunch time of the season. We're talking, I don't know, maybe less than 10 games. I genuinely don't remember. I think it was like less than 10 games to go or something like that.
Game weeks.
Okay, it's even worse. It's even worse than I can imagine. Okay, so it's the final couple game weeks, and we're not lying to each other. We're still straight mugging, straight face, and all this type of stuff. And I was talking to him about different transfers. One of them being Eden Hazard. To which he just, okay, fine. He's going to immediately say that this wasn't the case. He's going to say that what this was about was me trying to guess who his captain was. And fair enough. At the point of him trying to catch up to me, he shouldn't tell me who the captain is, right? But I also asked him about suggestions for my team. That's how I remember it. And I remember it being like me asking about Eden Hazard. And to which he was just dead quiet. He was dead quiet for most answers, right? When it was like a blatant no, he would just outright say no. But when it came to Eden Hazard and some other names, he got dead quiet. So I don't remember if I had like an inkling, like, oh, did he actually go for Hazard or not? But at the end of the day, the difference between me not going for Hazard and him going for Hazard was obviously the thing that won him the mini league, and Zaha, of course. Zaha I wasn't even considering it, and that he did all by himself. But if I had brought Hazard in, it would have neutralized it and all this other sort of stuff. But fair enough, as the guy catching up, he doesn't necessarily have to tell me that he's getting in Hazard. But if he's giving me advice, he could have mentioned Hazard because that could have changed my season, and it didn't.
Yeah.
That's how I remember a lot of it. Okay.
Over to
Yeah.
Mathias.
Let's now hear from Mathias, who has the stats, who has the numbers, and blah 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 blah. And I'm gonna interrupt several times and say that he's full of horse doo doo, but I'll give it to him. Okay.
We can try to interrupt if I have the microphone now. So I'll set the record straight. First of all, we'll go to Aubameyang. Kimo, you know how much of a Aubameyang fan I've been in FPL. I've been obsessed with him for some reason, to my detriment. As was the case in this thing. Kevin said he had a purple patch. That is so far off the case. He had like a couple decent games, but nowhere near the level Aguero did. Aguero had matches against Arsenal and Chelsea, consecutive game weeks. He had like game week 25. He played Arsenal, scored a hat trick. And then he had a blank. Then he had a blank game week 26, and then he had a double game week 27 with Everton and Chelsea. And he blanked against Chelsea, and then he scored another hat trick. Or he blanked against Everton, and then he scored another hat-trick against Chelsea.
Yes.
During this whole time, I had Aubameyang. He did not have a blank in Game Week 26. He was supposed to face Huddersfield, but he was ill for that match, so he didn't play that match. So obviously, I lost a lot of points compared to Kevin and everyone else who had brought in Aguero earlier. I still had Aubameyang. So yeah, I had to admit defeat and say just like, ugh. Do I really have to transfer out Aubameyang to get Aguero? I guess I have to. Aubameyang was going to play Bournemouth at home. That was a really good fixture for him, but after so many letdowns and him being ill against Huddersfield, I just figured, I don't know, maybe I should sell him. I'll talk to Kevin and ask him for his advice. And he gave me the go-ahead. Yeah, you should sell Aubameyang. You should get Aguero, who has West Ham, my favorite team. He plays West Ham, and then he plays someone else I can't remember. Aubameyang played Bournemouth and then Spurs, like Kevin correctly. That was one of the few things he got correct. So yeah, obviously, with a heavy heart, I sold Aubameyang and bought Aguero. And then and then I went to bed. And obviously, I struggled sleeping. I was pondering, is it really worth it? What is life? Is it worth it anymore? So I struggled to sleep, and then I wake up the next morning, and I see that I got a message from Kevin, and this is what I saw from him.
Oh my god.
So Kevin had transferred in Aubameyang. I think, I'm not 100% certain about this. I think it was straight for Aguero. It might have been Kane to Aubameyang, but I think it was for Aguero. But at least the thing is, he told me to sell Aubameyang, and then he brought him in the next day and put it straight in my face.
Did he do well?
And he claimed, we'll get to that as well. That's not the point, though. It's still, he had Bournemouth at home. Arsenal won 5-1 against Bournemouth. Aubameyang had plenty of chances. He only got one goal. Fair enough. In the end, that was karma for Kevin. Because if he would have gotten a hat-trick and I wouldn't have had him, Kevin would have beaten me that season. So that's just karma playing out for the Buddhist Kevin. Anyways, that's Aubameyang. Obviously, I gave Kevin a lot of, doo-doo, like he said, if you're going to keep it PG, throughout the season or afterwards. Then about 10 game weeks later, we come to the Hazard incident. So basically, we're coming up on the end of the season. It's 2 game weeks to go. I'm about 30 or 25 points behind Kevin. I need to figure out a way to basically get more points than him. And obviously, I can't tell Kevin exactly what I'm going to do, and then he's just going to copy my team. Like, that would defeat the purpose of me trying to catch him. So before he has said anything to me in Game Week 37, I tell him, this is correct. I remember more than him. I tell him, I'm not gonna tell you what I'm gonna do this week, so you have the option to do the same to me. I gave him that out. He didn't have to discuss anything in terms of FPL with me, and I told him I'm not going to tell you who I'm going to buy and who I'm going to captain this week.
Fair
so
enough,
if you want to do the same with me, then sure, go ahead. We'll do it mano a mano without any tips and stuff. So obviously, I went for Hazard. He was my secret pick. He played Cardiff, so it wasn't really that big of a differential anyway. It made sense.
Easy to guess. Yeah.
It's just Hazard was obviously expensive, so you'd have to jumble your lineup a bit if you didn't have an expensive midfielder to sell for him. I can't remember exactly who I sold and stuff, but anyways, I brought in Hazard. He had 2 assists, I think, against Cardiff. Got some bonus points, and obviously as my captain, I think he got 15 points or 12 points or something like that, times 2. While Kevin's captain, I think, failed. I can't remember who Kevin's captain even was. Anyways, I did nothing wrong. Hazard helped me along with Zaha and Mane at the final game week to get me over the hump and beat Kevin for yet another season.
Yeah, I think they had Wolves at the last game of the week.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think...
For 2 goals, yeah.
Yeah, it was one of us had Trent, and I think I had Trent and Mane. He had Salah and Robertson or something along those lines, and that also helped me win the league. I was actually here in London for that final game week as well, and I was not one of those guys who were like, haha, you lost, blah blah blah. I was actually pretty calm about it.
Yeah.
He had that's Kevin's best season in FPL, and he had a great season. I'm not going to say anything against that, but I still beat him. But
I think there's no Judas here. I think it's natural, and it's I think Kevin is a little bit naive to share what his intention. You know what I mean? I think that's like really kind. I'm like much worse than you guys. I don't share anything, like especially in the last weeks. With a mini league, like with my friends that we played for like 17 seasons together in the same mini league. I don't say anything. I even use Photoshop and do like fake transfers and send it to them and switch off my phone, something like that. So, but the funny thing, because I remember that game so well, it was in January or something like this. I was
February.
It was in February. Yeah, I was going to Egypt, and I actually sold Aguero and someone else, and I bought Sané, and the flight was so long, and the first thing I switched on my phone when I land in Egypt, and I find like a million missed calls from my friend teasing me that Aguero scored a hat-trick against Chelsea. Against Arsenal.
Yeah.
And I remember very well. I captained Sané against Everton in the double game week in Chelsea, and he got me 1 point.
That's the famous Sané 1-pointer for the double game week as well.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
It's the same.
I have one friend of mine who triple captain Sané at that game week. We still tease him till today about that run back.
That's true. Yeah, I think I actually had Sané. I think I had Sané as well as captain, so that might be why I didn't have Aguero.
Aguero was never going to play all these games, but you never trust Pep. So at the last game week, actually, I was 2 points behind the mini league where I play with the guys, and I tripled captain Mane the last game week of the season. I had Mane and Alexander-Arnold, and Mane scored a goal, Salah scored nothing or scored 1 goal, something like that. And I won the mini league by 6 points because of the triple captain of me and the assists of Alexander. So a really cool season, lovely story. And this is a beauty of Fantasy Premier League. It's just like one story that carries on for years, and so on. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. But no one is guilty here. Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, sure. Kevin said we were both guilty, to be honest, but. We'll see.
I think
Kevin can have the final word. I'll be the bigger man. Hang on, Kevin. You'll get the microphone. Relax. So he'll have the final word because I made a retort to him. So obviously he should be able to respond, and then we'll move on to the rest of the content this week. So here's Kevin one final time. Spread more lies. Here we go.
So he said it himself. Either we're both guilty or we're not guilty. I can take it. It's a draw.
We'll just leave it at that, and then we'll leave it up to the audience comments. Do you think Kevin was a Judas for telling me to sell Aubameyang and then bringing him in straight away?
I think I trust him in terms of buying a player to go and watch him live. You know that I've been to London twice in my life, and the first time I've been to London, I actually brought in Raheem Sterling, especially to see him live and captain him. And guess what? City lost at Etihad at home, 2-0 to Wolves. Adama Traore scored 2 goals.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Emery's assist. I remember that game. So I brought Sterling in a shitty form of his life, and I captained him because I wanted to make a meaning to go into the stadium and seeing a Premier League game. So it makes sense, you know what I mean? You always want to see a player that you have in your team. I brought randomly Calvert-Lewin against Chelsea because I was watching Everton and Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and I know that they were not going to score. They lost 4-0, but I just for the fun, I brought in Calvert-Lewin. I couldn't dare to captain him, of course, but yeah, that's what happened.
Sure. And with that, we'll move on to the next few slides here. First of all is the table of contents, just what we're going to talk about this week, apart from the whole Judas Gate introduction thing that we've done. We spent 20 minutes on that, so we'll move along swiftly, unlike my language. So first we'll talk about our Gameweek 14 teams, what happened in Gameweek 14 for all of us. Then we'll look at the fixtures and see who has the best fixtures, who has the worst fixtures, and look at some stats as well for the teams. Then we'll make the case for our best Ivan Toney or even Mitrovic replacements if you want to replace one of your strikers, or Skamaka replacement potentially for some of us. Then we'll have the weekly wildcard draft. We drafted another wildcard. There's a difference this week that you can already see. It's not Haaland as number one pick because obviously his injury is making us a bit iffy. So Kimo selected De Bruyne first. That's a bit of a spoiler for that. And then finally, we'll talk about our Gameweek 15 plans, what we're going to do, what transfers are we planning on doing, and what transfers have possibly we've already made. One of us have made transfers already, but we'll get to that later. First of all, we're going to talk about Kimo and his Gameweek 13. Kimo has the number one pick today, both in the wildcard draft and in Make the Case, and he's also going to speak first on his team. So go ahead, Kimo.
Yes, and for the audio, it's Ryan goal, Gabriel 6 points, Cancelo 6 points, Trippier 11, Bueno 2 points because Holland didn't play, Salah 14 points as a captain, could have gone more, but yeah, devastating. Foden has 1 pointer coming from the bench. It's really typical, you know, doing a wild card only to bring Cancelo and Foden, and then he never plays, and he never will. I know my luck. Zaha disappointing again with 2 points. Martinelli really solid performance with 8 points. Saka, and really that's also a bad luck of the wild card. He could have gone 15 or 17 points if he was in the pitch, but he got injured in the first half, as everybody saw. 4 points, 1 assist. I'll take it. And the biggest disappointment of the year is Skamaka. After the wild card, I thought he's gonna score a lot of goals during the last 2 games, but he doesn't run. He doesn't even make effort. He's really bad at all the stats. You know what I mean? He doesn't look hungry. What happened? I don't know. But yeah. So I have Haaland in my bench, Williams, Archer. I don't know why he's in my team. Iverson. So yeah, 57 points. Below the average for the 3rd time this season. I correct myself because I said I never had a week below the average, and there was one at the 3rd game week, and the last 2 game weeks I'm below the average. So it's really going downhill from there. So
yeah, that's led you to your rank of 1.7 million. So it's not going swimmingly for you, but at least it's going better than for me, who I got 62 points this week because I have the same team as you, except that I have Jesus rather than Saka. That should have probably been worse for me in some ways, because Saka could have had a lot of points if he played, because he would have scored his chances, unlike Jesus, who had 3 clear-cut chances to score and missed all of them. He also had an assist to Reece Nelson deleted, because Reece Nelson missed the first shot, and then he made the second one, so no assist for Jesus. But still, Jesus got 9 points. He was my highest scorer apart from Trippier. I probably should have stuck with him as my captain, or vice captain, I should say. Last week we discussed who would be our captains if Haaland wasn't playing, and at the time I had Jesus as vice captain, but I made the change to Salah, which was fine. Salah had a good game as well with his 14 points. But yeah, it's basically the same team as Kimo, so what you heard earlier counts the same for me.
How did you have like a red arrow? I don't get it.
Who?
You have like a red arrow. How come you got like 60?
Yeah. I don't know really. It was just a high scoring game week. For some reason, a lot of people got a lot of points. I
Newcastle
I
won,
didn't
so
have any of the Newcastle players. Obviously,
yeah.
I talked about in the intro that I didn't have Almiron. I was going to have him rather than Foden. So that's 12 points I lost out on. That would have been 74 points and a much better game week. But 62 points, it's fine. Like I usually have a rule: if I get 60 points, I'm happy with the game week. If you get 60 points every game week, you're should be really fine. That hasn't been the case for me this season, and that's why I'm 2.2 million at the moment, which is really bad.
The game used to be like 6 or 5 million.
Yeah.
Then your theory is right now we're over 10 million. So, but I think you will give the mic to the innocent
Yeah,
Judas.
that's what I was about to say. Let's move it to someone who knows what he's doing this season, and that is Kevin.
Innocent Judas who has Newcastle boys. I'm really jealous.
So yeah, Kevin can take it from there. He had a pretty good striker this game week, so here he goes.
Yeah, to just quickly talk about my team, I said in the previous podcast I was very happy with the team going into Game Week 14 because so many of them were playing at home. I think both me and Kimo were very unlucky that Saka only got 4 points. He easily could have gotten a goal and all this type of stuff, and he was contributing really well, but he hobbled off and is looking safe for next match, which is great. In terms of my team, I had a bunch of defenders that kept a clean sheet. Cancelo with 6, Gay with 6, Trippier obviously got 11 thanks to his assist, was it? Yeah. And Raya got enough saves to, salvage a 3-pointer. And Salah, who I made the case for, obviously scored. And I was very happy that Leeds were able to beat Liverpool at Anfield. Yeah. And I'll be completely honest, it's actually Darwin who cost Salah from getting more points because Salah constantly fed him the ball and all this type of stuff, and Darwin just kept missing all of his chances.
Salah himself looked really devastated and disappointed from the chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Zaha is looking like a waste of space. It just came down to a single 2 points. Everton managed to keep a clean sheet for the first time in like 20 odd matches in the Premier League away from home, and that's why I was able to get 3 points from Andreas, which I don't know, I guess was a benefit because it helped add up to the 70 points, but obviously I'm not talking about the big thing that got me 70 points, and that was Callum Wilson, who got 19 beautiful points. There was this one time when I was listening to his podcast between him and I believe it was Antonio, and they were talking. And I'm lying. I obviously didn't listen to this. This is a story that Kibo told us in one of the episodes. I just want to rub it in that he mentioned the story and doesn't have Callum Wilson. But to be fair, I was considering selling Wilson and all this type of stuff, not because of disbelief or anything like that. It was just more that there were a lot of underlying stats for him. The issue was he just wasn't getting the goals to the point where it was getting frustrating. Sort of like how Trossard was always in the box, always doing everything correctly, but not getting the goals. Then randomly against City, he scores, and then this team he scores, and I'm just like, oh God, okay. So luckily I stuck with Callum Wilson. He got me the 19 points, which was great, and has some good matches to round off before the World Cup. But yeah, got 70 points. Very happy with that. Obviously a green arrow as well. So, I mean, I was 90K just like 2 weeks ago, but that just shows just how quickly things can change in FPL. You just need to get one transfer in correctly or one captaincy and you're back in the game.
Or a stupid wild card to kill your team, just like I did.
I mean, sure, you say that, but I'm sure we'll be fine in a couple of weeks' time. I think people put too much pressure and too much weight into everything right now. I mean, we're only 14 game weeks in out of 38. A lot can change. A lot can change.
The thing is, it's always in November, December, I do really bad. I have that habit, you know what I mean, of going down the ranks in those 2 months. Up until February, then I do really bad, and then I start picking up the points again in March and April, May. So I was hoping for something new this year, but yeah, we'll take it from there. We'll see. Yeah, really absolutely. Jealous that everybody has run and stuff like this. Newcastle looked sharp. It was so stupid for me to overlook them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pass it back to Mathias, and we'll...
Yeah. I think the only player I didn't mention was Tony, who got a yellow card and is now suspended. So he got 1 point for Kevin.
And then that says a lot about the title of the episode: the good, the bad, and the Wilson. Because the good in this case is Mitrovic, who's delivering really good stats. So many goals in the last few game weeks, even unexpectedly. And the bad is Tony because he got suspended. And the Wilson, he's a hero of the week, I think so. And I think he will continue scoring. He's selected to the England squad for the World Cup, like the 55 players.
Yeah.
So yeah, that will give him motivation to carry on the form. So we'll see about that.
Yeah.
He's in my plans.
For sure. And like Kevin mentioned with Chemo's story about Wilson and Antonio, we all had Wilson at the start of the season. So we've all been fans of his, and whenever he's fit, he's really good. So
yeah.
Obviously, he could have been in both of me and Chemo's teams. We did a wildcard in Gameweek 13, but we went with Skamaka instead, which was a
terrible choice.
Big mistake. But we'll see if we can correct that mistake potentially later. We're going to look to the future rather than the past now, and we're going to look at the fixtures first. And quickly, there's only 2 game weeks until the World Cup break, when we all get free transfers and limited transfers. So we only really have to think about the next 2 game weeks when we make our transfers. And as you can see, Man City are at the top. Most people have triple Man City unless they've sold Haaland or Foden the last few game weeks. So yeah, obviously that will be interesting to see regarding Haaland's fitness, if he's ready to play both matches or if he's able to play one of them. That will make quite a bit of a difference in our transfers. But yeah, we can see all the other teams as well. Let's move on to the next slide where we can see some stats to go along with it. Here we have the expected goals, XG, and the expected goals conceded for the last 6 matches for all teams. And in terms of expected goals, Newcastle are number 1 with 12.09 expected goals the last 6 matches. They are on fire, as we've seen with Almiron and Wilson and Trippier for that matter. Tripling up is probably the right idea with Newcastle, even though me and Chemo only have Trippier. Kevin has Wilson as well, obviously. So yeah, Newcastle are really, really good. West Ham, in terms of XG and XGC, they are really, really good, but that doesn't really turn into results that much. They beat Bournemouth and then they lost against Man United 1-0. But they still have the second highest XG with 10.39. And third highest XG is Liverpool with 9.76. And the bottom 3 in terms of XG are Bournemouth with 4.54. They still managed to score a lot of goals though with low XG, as they did against Spurs with 2 goals. Crystal Palace are second from bottom. That kind of explains why Saha has been such a disappointment when everyone brought him in. They've been
But
pretty...
I said it long time ago. Zaha is not going to do anything. Crystal Palace doesn't score. It's a flop. I was expected that, like 1 goal maximum. That's it.
And you still brought him in your wildcard, so you gotta listen to your own advice.
I was gonna bring Trossard. I don't know. It's just like so.
Yeah, you should have stuck with Trossard. That's lesson learned, I guess. But maybe that will be fixed as well. We'll see. But the final poor team in terms of XG is Nottingham Forest with 5.36 XG. Looking at the expected goals conceded, we have the same top 2. We have Newcastle with the best expected goals conceded, 4.67 the last 6 matches. West Ham are number 2 with 5.07 the last 6 matches. And then third is Man City with 5.08. And bottom 3 in terms of expected goals conceded, we have from bottom, we have Fulham, has been the worst defense in the league pretty much all season. They concede a lot of goals and they concede the most expected goals conceded with 11.45 the last 6 matches. Liverpool 10.91, second worst, which is kind of surprising, and Everton third worst with 9.82. That's basically it for the stats. We can also look at the fixtures more, and there's also one more thing of note, and I'll hand it to Kevin now as our La Liga expert. He'll talk a bit more about Aston Villa and Wolverhampton, who both have got new managers. Well, Wolverhampton isn't confirmed as of this recording. We're recording on a Wednesday, as always. And Lopetegui has not taken over Wolverhampton, but it's expected to go through pretty soon, probably before the game week. We'll see. Yeah. But Aston Villa obviously hired Unai Emery last week, and now he's finally ready to take charge after his visa and everything is fixed. So yeah, Kevin will talk a bit more about what we can expect from these 2 teams. Potentially not in the next few game weeks, because as you can see, Aston Villa and Wolverhampton have pretty terrible fixtures, so getting their players are aren't necessarily the most important thing, but watching them play and seeing how the new managers implement their style will be important. So Kevin can talk a bit more about Emery and Lopetegui.
Cheers, thank you. So to begin with, I think we should obviously talk about the guy who's actually in charge, which would be Unai Emery. Unai Emery is a serial winner of all the smaller tournaments and stuff like that. I think it's a bit unfair considering his dynasty that he created with Sevilla and winning the Europa League so many times. I think that he's proven everywhere that despite, you know, whatever shortcomings he's had, he still won a lot of things and taken teams to a lot of finals, including Arsenal. If they hadn't faced that Chelsea side, they probably would have won the Europa League. And I think Aston Villa fans I think Aston Villa fans should be very excited over the prospects of having someone like Unai Emery. The thing is, though, that yes, Villarreal have been sort of up and down these last couple of years, but they still famously beat Manchester United on penalties. They
caused trouble to Liverpool last year against Champions League.
I mean, they knocked Bayern out and all this, a lot of exciting things. And I think one of the exciting things for FPL managers, it should be the fact that he plays a very high press, you know, all the players run for 90 minutes without stop, you know, 4-1, 4-1, which benefited Gerard Moreno. So in this case, that's Danny Ings. It benefited him because all the wingers did all the work and all the supply runs and stuff like that, which is good.
It's going to be interesting if you're going to choose between Danny Ings or Watkins to be the main man.
But that's the thing. I have a feeling that he might play Ollie Watkins on the left wing and have Leon Bailey on the right to supply the runs and to constantly feed the ball to Danny Ings, which worked out really well with Samuel Chukwueze and Yeremy Pino to Gerard Moreno. That was a formidable attack that eventually ended up winning a bunch of titles and stuff like that. But I think FPL managers who still have Leon Bailey, in this case we have Mathias who actually has him, should really be interested in the fact that he's going to put better numbers with someone like Unai Emery in charge, who loves to get the attack going from the wings because it's constantly them pressuring the ball to try and get it. Unlike Mr. Julian Lopetegui, who, as of yet, sure, isn't confirmed at Wolves, but plays a very attractive style of football and a very attacking style of football, which is something that Wolves have been lacking all season, you know, because they're not
all the seasons, not only all the season.
And when you have such awesome talents as Pedro Neto,
justice for Pedro Neto.
Yeah, Pedro Neto, you know, Hwang, Ruben Neves, like all these wonderful players who can contribute in both attack and defense. It's perfect because he plays a 4-3-3 similar to Barcelona in the sense of possession play, very short passing, combination plays. With the players that they have, I think it's a dream signing, but it all depends on whether he can get the board behind him, because that's sort of what his downfall at Sevilla was. Because if you look at where Villarreal are now, they're currently mid-table, but Sevilla are currently 18th. They are not looking great. They have been terrible all season. A lot of things went wrong. We knew he was going to get fired before it was even made official. Like, we knew that regardless of whatever happened in Sevilla's Champions League match, he'd get fired. Of course, they lost. Of course, he got fired. That is a downside to Lopetegui. Whilst with Unai Emery, his track record is a lot better. But to benefit of Lopetegui, he also managed to win the Europa League very impressively against Inter in the final. So I think in terms of these clubs wanting to have ambitions and to try and strive for things, maybe a cup run, maybe trying to finish it like in a conference or Europa League, these are the managers you need to be able to do so. I think Unai Emery is a perfect fit for the ambitions that Aston Villa had when they brought in Steven Gerrard, because Gerrard at the time with Rangers was amazing, but then obviously it didn't pan out perfectly. But Unai Emery's track record is obviously much bigger than Steven Gerrard's. But in terms of Lopetegui, I feel that Lopetegui has proven that despite what happened with Spain, despite what happened with Real Madrid, and despite what happened with Sevilla, that he's not a quitter. He'll keep trying. And I think, again, it's a match made in heaven. It's awesome to see two Spanish coaches in the Premier League, obviously as a La Liga fan and supporter of a La Liga club. I think we're going to see a lot of fun things happen in terms of FPL things. Keep an eye out on Raul Jimenez. Keep an eye out on Leon Bailey. Coutinho as well. And a bunch of the wingers at Aston Villa for sure. But as of these next 2 game weeks, don't wait until after the World Cup.
I think Leon Bailey will do good. I remember he did really well when Gerrard took over, so I think there might be some prospect here. Yeah.
Definitely. Other than Aston Villa and Wolverhampton, which is obviously more of a future point of interest, do you have anything to note the next 2 game weeks, Kimo?
I think Brighton looks so obviously good fixtures. Aston Villa and Wolverhampton, especially Aston Villa game at game week 16 at home. So at Amex.
Yeah. Funny you should mention Brighton since they're playing Wolverhampton and Aston Villa, so they'll get to see what Unai Emery and Lopetegui are all about.
Yeah. You just look at the stats and you have like to hope that Aston Villa will repeat the 4-0 defeat against Brighton. When they play away, they are really terrible. They were really weak against Newcastle. So I'm just hoping. I think Everton as well, good fixtures. Leicester and Bournemouth. Yeah, there is a lot of goals. You never know which Everton will show up. So, but I see a lot of goals in the both fixtures. So
yeah. Speaking of Everton, that makes a lot of sense for our next segment because that is Make the Case, and you've made the case for an Everton player, and that is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Basically, for this week's Players to Watch, or Make the Case as we have it, we have forwards that are worth less than 9.0, so no Kane, no Cristiano Ronaldo, no Haaland. Apart from that, we can choose freely from all the strikers, and as number 1, you didn't go with Wilson, Kimo, you went with DCL as your number 1 pick. Why is that?
I think in terms of going differential, the obvious pick is at the attack right now is Haaland, Wilson, and maybe Harry Kane or someone else, and Tony when he's suspended. So if you want to climb up the ranks, in my case, you need to go differential. So in terms of stats, he's having the third of the stats that Callum Wilson have right now in terms of expected goals, involvement, big chances, shots in the box. But I think you see the fixtures pretty easy, and he has a low ownership. So if you want to go differential and gamble that he's going to explode, then you go Calvert-Lewin. So this is basically my biggest bet is on he is differential and he has like some fixtures with so many goals, especially historically Bournemouth and Everton has a lot of goals between them. So in terms of stats, it's really weak, but he was injured and so on. So yeah, I think there's so many better picks in terms of attacks, but yeah, you have to look at the fixture. So
yeah, that's fair enough. And you also made the case for Anthony Gordon right before he scored a goal, so maybe the same will happen again. I'm sure Kevin would like that as an Everton fan. But before we get to Kevin again, I'm just gonna quickly go through Wilson. We've already talked about him. He's the headline of this podcast, The Good, the Bad, and the Wilson. If you look at his statistics, it's super good. He is fighting for his England spot, like we mentioned. And as a pro and con, I've listed essential and fit. Basically, we all had him at the start of the season when he was fit because we knew what he can do. And he's shown once again that he's a really good striker who probably should have a place in the England squad, in my opinion at least. He's super in form. He's the obvious pick, so I'm not going to really talk much more about him. Obviously, the one thing is that he plays Chelsea in Game Week 16, but as we just saw with Chelsea, they lost 4-1 against Brighton. So who knows what Chelsea will show up. Kepa has been injured now. Mendy is not a good goalkeeper anymore. And Southampton, historically, Wilson has been really good last few times he's played Southampton. So I think Wilson is a no-brainer if you have the money for him. More on that later. But Kevin has the difficult thing of choosing the third pick. He can't choose DCL or Wilson. He has to choose someone else, and he ended up with.
It's pretty unfair for him. But,
it's pretty. The third pick is always pretty unfair, but Kevin has mentioned Edward previously, and he can now make his case for him properly.
I don't know what to say. Crystal Palace are terrible. They're terrible at home. They're terrible away. But despite all that, if you look at Edouard's sort of goals and assists contributions, it's pretty good. He randomly will get you a goal or an assist, but that's it. Don't expect anything more than like 2 goals, more than a single assist, nothing like that. If you want a player who can, according to stats recently, can consistently get you at least 1 attacking return, that's who you should go for. But if you want to go boom or bust, you go DCL. If you want to go completely in form, you go for Wilson. But the only case that I can make for Edouard is the fact that his returns have been pretty decent. It's just the fact that
whenever he plays, he scores.
Yeah, but you're talking like you're gonna get max 5-6 points in total from him. That's the only issue. But 5-6 points is better than 2 or 1, like Tony's been getting the last couple of weeks. I wish I actually went Edouard over Tony, because Tony has been like random week he'll get you 12 points. The other 3 in a row he'll get you 1 or 2 because he's a yellow card merchant. And but yeah, that's basically all I can say about Edouard. But
Do you
probably
know
avoid.
who are over him in the stats?
Huh?
Do you know what kind of players are over Edward in the stats? Danny Ings and Watkins and Diego Costa have better stats than him, but they never score. But the thing is, like, Edward can really score more points than Diego Costa and Watkins. Yeah,
And that's the thing about Edouard, is the fact that at Celtic, he was a mega striker that I wanted at Everton and all this type of stuff. Then he went to Crystal Palace, had a decent debut and all this stuff. But then obviously management changes and him sort of falling out of favor in training and all this type of stuff. Yeah, it sort of screwed him. But he's certainly making a case, and I'm making a case for him that he might be back. He's getting the random goals and assists.
He scored a goal last game, and I don't think it's by the stats. You see Nunes, he has like mega stats. He rarely scores. He misses a lot of chances. You say Mbuemo has double the stats that Edward has, and same with return. And I don't think Mbuemo will ever score a goal up until 2023. So I think
Edward's a clinical guy. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
And finally, just to Kevin's point as well, Edouard is also a cheaper striker. So if you want to bring in some expensive midfielder, if you want to get money for De Bruyne or something like that, Edouard is obviously a differential pick compared to Wilson and DCL, who are more expensive. So if you can't afford those guys, Edouard is certainly a decent option, as he has shown. But anyways, that's us making the case. You guys can comment who you think made the best case. I don't know. We'll see. We don't even have to discuss it now, but we'll see if any of us will bring in either of these players. Kevin obviously has Wilson already. So, we'll see that later. But first, before we get to our plans for next week, we'll go through our weekly wildcard draft. As you can see, Kimo's number 1 pick, I'm number 2 pick, and Kevin is number 3 pick this week. We have the uncertainty with Haaland's injury, which has put us off having him for the next 2 game weeks. So obviously, this is not... We've all used our wildcards already this season. This is just a ranking in terms of which players are the most important to get in Gameweek 15 and 16, pretty much. Starting from scratch with a squad.
You might find some people have wildcards, so you never know.
Some people might do. So if you're one of the few people who saved your wildcard until now, me and Kimo probably should have saved it from 13 until now. Seeing how we failed with our Game Week 13 wildcards. But if you still have a wildcard, then sure, go for this squad. The weekly wildcard draft we did last week did really well in terms of the points they got. We had Diogo Dalot. We have a couple other players that we don't have this week that scored points last week and looked really good. And some of the players are in this game week's wildcard draft as well. But we'll get to that later. We'll just quickly run through the names. But first, we're going to mention De Bruyne, who is number 1 pick, and we haven't mentioned him so far in this podcast before this segment. So, Kimo, number 1 pick. Why have we gone with De Bruyne?
I think they are playing against the worst defense in the league, Fulham. So if anybody is going to be involved in terms of goals, if Haaland doesn't play, I think just for the security, so I think it's going to be Kevin De Bruyne, no-brainer. Yeah. He's going to play, yeah.
My only question is, if you have Cancelo, Foden, and Haaland, and you can say Haaland is fit, and you have the money to upgrade from Foden to De Bruyne, would you do that transfer, or would you just stick with Foden?
Do you mean with the stick with De Bruyne?
No. I'm saying if you're in your personal team, if you have enough money to go from Foden to De Bruyne, would you do that transfer? Do you have that much belief in De Bruyne, or do you think he's sort of the same as Foden?
I think he will be involved anyway. I think Pep Guardiola spoke after the last game that they have done everything together and so on, and he's still demanding little bit more from De Bruyne. De Bruyne responded to that statement that he's still not in his best, and he has more in his pocket to deliver. So I think before the World Cup, he wants to be at his top. So I think he will play, he will score.
I think another point for De Bruyne is if Haaland is not fit, then De Bruyne is the best captain option, really. He's by far the best captain option if Haaland is not playing. So that's why we picked him number one, or that's why you picked him number one. And then we'll move on to number two. That's my pick. I've just gone with Trippier. He's been so good all season. I'm going to give him his flowers and pick him as number two because he deserves it. He's been my best pick from the start of the season. He's been the best defender all season. Yeah. He's really amazing. He should be the starting right back for England, almost regardless of what Reece James and Trent do. He's been that good. He's been that reliable. So whether it's right centre back or if it's right wing back for England, I think he should play. But that's besides the point in FPL. We'll move on to the next player. And that is Kevin with Wilson. We've already made the case for him. Yeah. Both Kevin and I have made the case for him. So we'll move on. Almiron. I mentioned him. I was going to bring him in last week, and then he scored a lot of points yet again. 3 double-digit returns in a row. He's a no-brainer for the price on a wildcard.
Absolutely amazing. Very beautiful goals as well. All his goals are very beautiful.
Yeah, Almiron was obviously Kimo's pick, and my pick is still Jesus. I have my gripes with him. I felt like he should have scored more points, but no man is without sin, even Jesus. So you just got to keep the faith in him, I guess. Not to get all biblical on you. Kevin, as always, goes with Cancelo. He didn't get any bonus points last week, of course, since I have him, but he's still a solid defender for Man City. Kimo, you selected Kane. You selected Son last week. That didn't really work out. Kane didn't really do much against Bournemouth, so why have you gone for Kane when he has Liverpool away?
Because Liverpool is the second weakest defense in the league. So
exactly.
Especially when they're playing away.
I think that will be a very interesting game because Liverpool have been terrible away and Spurs have been terrible against top 6 sides. So that will be a very interesting match to see for sure.
And I'm not sure when Son is injured. So that was... I sent you my picks before Son got injured. So I'm not sure. But I think Kane will show correct. He'll be the main man.
Yeah. Obviously, next pick is me, and I've picked Trossard. I've been a huge fan of Trossard, and we've made the case for him as well with Brighton's fixtures. He's just a really good option. Kevin has picked Gordon yet again. We have Gordon in the wildcard drafts. Everton are pretty good going forward. There's no spot for DCL in this team, so Kevin goes with Gordon.
We went heavy on that tag. That was the reason Jesus, Kane, and De Bruyne. So
yeah, so we have less money to spend on midfield, but we have slightly more to spend, so we're going to go with Foden yet again. We're going to put faith in Foden once more. It's obvious if he plays, he will get points, but it just depends if Pep wants to play him or not. Surely now, after 2 benchings, he has to be playing. So, yeah, Kevin has...
I'm not that sure. I wouldn't be that close.
But surely, even Pep. But Kevin has something to say, so let's see.
Okay, you'll see. You'll get
as the time of recording, he is actually starting in the Champions League game, which has a bunch of the scrubs playing, which isn't great. It's not great. However, if he goes into the game with a positive attitude and scores and all this type of stuff, I'm pretty sure Pep has to reward him for playing the part. So that's just all I wanted to add about Foden.
Yeah, so it just depends. He starts, but if he gets subbed off at halftime, if he gets subbed off after 60 minutes, that's a good indication that he's going to start the next match. So just keep a lookout for that. We don't know yet because we're recording right before the match, the Champions League match. We'll move right along with the wildcard drafts. As for goalkeeper, I went with Sanchez. Kimo brought up Brighton's decent fixtures coming up. Wolverhampton and Aston Villa have been pretty poor going forward this season, so Sanchez makes sense as a cheap goalkeeper. Gabriel, he returned with the clean sheet last game week. It's been really good. That's Kevin's pick. Yeah. Chemo goes with Tarkowski in defense. Everton. Care to explain more? It's just money, I guess. Cheap.
No, I think we will play 3-4-3. So he's just on the bench.
Just the bench.
If he can make a goal from corner or something, I think so it'll be fine. So
yeah,
I wouldn't make a case for Everton to make a clean sheet against Leicester. Maddison and Vardy and Daka and Harvey Barnes can score at any time. But just like, if you're going to use this wildcard template, you're going to play 3-4-3 and that's it.
Yeah, and they have Bournemouth, I think, in Gameweek 16.
Yeah.
So that's for the wildcard draft. So he's a good player to stash on your bench.
Not bad, yeah.
And the same with Bueno and Ward. They also go straight into the bench. Like last week, they're on the bench. Ward probably gets 8 points on the bench again, but that's enough about Ward and the weekly wildcard draft. So that there you can see it. These are the players we are promoting this week and next week, for that matter. So yeah, make of that what you will. We'll go on with our Gameweek 15 plans, and that is Chemo going first again. You have not made any transfers left yet, but you have 0.8 in the bank and 2 free available transfers. So tell us about your plans.
Well, my team right now is Raya on the goal, Cancelo, Trippier, Gabriel not going anywhere, Martinelli, Salah, Foden not going anywhere, Scamacca, Holland, Saka and Zaha. I have a lot of thinking. It depends on the news, you know what I mean? But I think Holland will start. He has only 2 games to the World Cup. Pep will play him, get the best out of him. He will relax for the whole month up until the World Cup is finished. So it might be that I want to get rid of Scamacca. I really don't want to see him play football. Just like he's so slow, he's this devastating. And I want to get rid of Zaha. I don't want him in my team. So Kevin, you said that Saka is ready to go and fit.
Yeah, Saka was pictured, or at least he was reported to be in training for Arsenal, full team training. So he should be good to go.
Fantastic, yeah. Even though they don't have the best fixture against Chelsea away, but I think Saka is a better player, can be more productive than Zaha in my team, than Scamacca. So my transfers might be Zaha, Scamacca out, Trossard, Wilson. I hate that I'm gonna go that way to bring Wilson because he's already the most transferred player with everyone and so on. So, but it's a pretty boring moves and pretty boring game weeks, pretty boring period in terms of only 2 game weeks until the break. So even not so much to talk about and to discuss. So if Holland is fit, which I think he will, he's my captain for sure. I have no doubt about that. I'm gonna captain either Holland, Cancelo, or Foden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, you say your transfer moves are boring, but I'm actually quite envious because I don't have the funds to do it. I only have 0.1 left in the bank compared to you who has 7 or 8. That's pretty much down to me having Neto at the start of the season coming to bite me in the ass one more time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I cannot afford Saha and Scamacca to Trossard and Wilson, but I can afford Saha and Scamacca to Rashford and Wilson. So I need to figure out if I think Rashford is a good option or if I really want Trossard. Like I said earlier in the podcast, I'm a huge fan of Trossard, so I might just do Saha to Trossard and keep my 2 transfers for next game week, just in case I need them. And I haven't listed it, but if it comes out, we're obviously gonna get, or probably gonna get early team news because City play in the first match along with a lot of other teams. We might get early team news yet again on City if Haaland and potentially Foden are benched or not even in the squad. So that will also, I'll wait to do my transfers until that happens. And I'm actually even considering if there's like really bad indications on Haaland playing before the World Cup break, I might sell him. He went down in price just last night. And obviously if you sell him now and bring him back, it's going to cost you 0.3.
I don't care.
I might have to bite that bullet, and sadly, I can't do Haaland to Wilson and Saha to De Bruyne either. I don't have enough money for that either. But I might do a triple transfer, do a -4 to bring in De Bruyne and captain him, because if Haaland isn't playing, I think De Bruyne can be the
I'll
main man.
definitely do that. Yeah, Wilson and Holland for Zaha and sorry, Holland and Zaha out, and I'll bring Wilson. Yeah.
Yeah, what I can do is just a straight swap with Palace and City players and do Zaha to De Bruyne and Haaland to Edouard, like Kevin advocated for it, Edouard. I don't know about that move, though. It's a bit sideways, especially if Haaland's playing in the final game week. But yeah, I'll just quickly, I forgot to do that at the start. I'll just quickly run through my team. I have Raya in goal against Nottingham Forest away. Cancelo, Gabriel, and Trippier in defense. Cancelo plays Fulham at home. Gabriel, Chelsea away, and Trippier, Southampton away. I have Foden at home to Fulham. Salah away to Spurs. He is currently my vice captain, behind Haaland, who's my main captain if he starts. Martinelli plays Chelsea away along with Jesus against Chelsea away, while Zaha and Scamacca face each other. Zaha playing away against West Ham with Scamacca playing at home. So I also need to figure out with Scamacca if I should put faith in him one more time. That also depends on what happens with the Thursday game for West Ham in the Europa League. Will he start? Will he play 60 minutes? Will it be 30 minutes? Will he score? It could affect my transfer decisions, whether he or Antonio plays well for West Ham in the Europa League. That's also sort of like West Ham are already through as number one, so that match doesn't really matter that much. But anyways, I have Bailey on the bench against Man United at home and Patterson against Leicester at home, so I have some decent bench options as well that I might have to use, but we'll see. Anyways, I'll hand the mic over to Kevin one last time, or, well, I have one more time after that as well, but for the second last time, I'll hand it over to Kevin for his team.
Yes, so in regards to my team, I've already made the transfers because price fluctuation was so crazy that I basically had to make the move because I was scared that I might not be able to bring one of these guys in, so what I ended up doing was getting rid of Zaha. Good riddance, man. You got me a goal and a random assist here, but man, you underperformed like crazy. And brought in Trossard, the guy who I should never have sold in the first place. And Tony, I kept the faith. He got me a random 12-pointer and got me a hat-trick way earlier in the season, but the yellow cards were just way too much. So I brought in Calvert-Lewin, the man that Kimo made a make the case for, and last time he got it right with an Everton player. I'm hoping he gets it right again with the goal against Leicester. Obviously, Everton play on my birthday as well, so it'd be a beautiful birthday goal and celebration if Everton manages to get the win, and in particular, DCL plays well. In regards to my full team, Ryan goal against Nottingham Forest, Trippier against Southampton, who's probably the most nailed player on the sheet besides Haaland, but I'll get to that. Patterson against Leicester, sorry, not Leeds. I don't know how I feel about that. I might switch it to Williams against Brentford.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
But as of recording, I currently have it on Patterson, only because I like Patterson and what he contributes to the team more than Coleman. Coleman is very good defensively, but he doesn't have the pace anymore to offer anything in offense, whilst Patterson can get a few decent crosses in, and now that we have a tall player in Calvert-Lewin over Neil Maupay, we're going to get the goals, and I think Patterson could cause some danger there. But again, Nick Williams might be able to come on. Cancelo is the other and last defender I have, who's playing Fulham. Saka against Chelsea away. Saka can get a penalty or something because Chelsea are not the best lately anyways, considering the 4-1 loss to Brighton away. But you could say that's De Serbi. You can say Potter, nerves against his former club, and also Chelsea just underperforming. But less about that. Salah against Spurs away. Again, Salah's in good form. Foden, we'll have to wait and see whether he'll play, but I think he'll play against Fulham. Trossard, the man in form. Yeah, let's see what he can do against Wolves.
What would you do if Holland is not playing?
Holland or Foden? Because if both don't play, I'm screwed. If Holland doesn't play, and Foden definitely does, then I will consider actually putting Foden as captain.
No, but would you sell Holland or not?
For -4.
It would be for -4. all depends. I mean, who are the striker replacements really? Like we just didn't make a case about all of them.
Nunes or
yeah. I mean, for me now, because another thing that I can mention now is Julian Alvarez is playing tonight. If he scores a bunch of goals and Holland is not ready, then a simple Julian Alvarez swap.
He's a really cool player, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of his and a huge advocate for him. So that for me, if I know for sure, especially with all the early team new stuff, for sure I'll bring Julian Alvarez in and then captain him. But in the assumption that for whatever reason he doesn't play and Pep does the false nine BS that he sometimes does with random players playing at striker, then Foden becomes the captain. But if Julian Alvarez plays, for sure, Julian Alvarez for -4, I'll do, because I wanted to get Trossard and DCL in anyways. So for me, it feels like obvious.
I think Holland will be fine anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure this is all hypothetical anyways. But if he plays over Foden, I'll be so severely angry. And then obviously I have Calvert-Lewin who's playing Leicester at home, and the boy himself, the ugly one, Callum Wilson, Southampton away. Southampton away isn't the easiest match because they can randomly pop up against anyone at St. Mary's. But let's ride the Newcastle wave. Hopefully they'll do well. The only reason why I didn't bring Almiron is because I don't feel like the Chelsea at home match is the greatest. And I also think that the emergence of St. Maximin, now that he's back on the pitch and stuff like that, it won't dwarf Wilson. I think Wilson will play better with St. Max on the pitch and also Almiron. But I think Almiron will get less touches on the ball because St. Max is the type of player who constantly wants the ball fed to him so he can dribble past and do his magic. So that's the only reason why I picked Trossard over Almiron, who might have been a more obvious pick because he's cheaper and whatever, but that's mainly to sum up the team. Anyways.
Yeah, that is fair enough. Kevin has a pretty good team. Even though he didn't have a wildcard, he has about as strong a team as me and Kimo, I think. Maybe even better because of Wilson. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the game week. And that's pretty much it for the podcast as well. Let's just go to the outro screen. We've recorded for about an hour and almost 10 minutes, which is pretty quick. Considering we spent 20 minutes on an intro we won't do every week. So we're getting efficient. We're getting better at this as we go every week. Just really happy that we've started this podcast with both you fine gentlemen. Looking forward to celebrating Kevin's 29th birthday. Looking forward to speaking more with Kimo as well. Obviously, I wish he was here as well, but that's next year. But yeah, before we leave, I'm just going to urge you to please share this video, this podcast with all your friends, colleagues, your grandma, whatever, anyone who's interested to see, whether it's for the FPL highlights or if it's the conversation about the Judas Kevin and his ugly move with Aubameyang. Anyways, that's beside the point. So yeah, please share this video with people you know, like this video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's it for YouTube, and Kevin is in charge of social media, so I'll let him speak more about Twitter, Instagram, and all the other platforms that we are on now, finally.
Yeah, just a quick thing. With Twitter and Instagram, we have a lot of fun plans coming up in terms of shorts, stories, and things to get more interaction with you guys, with the FPL community as a whole. So keep an eye out. We're definitely looking at fun ways to expand and also just to interact with you guys. There's obviously going to be polls. There's going to be a lot of fun content that's going to be coming your way, including the launch of our Spotify channel, which will be including into the slides and all this type of stuff, and we'll be doing updates on Twitter and Instagram as well, so you guys can have some direct links from there. But keep an eye out. It's going to be a fun space, and especially now that we're getting closer to the World Cup, there's going to be a lot of World Cup related FPL stuff, which includes a watch list and all this fun stuff, and of course us playing World Cup Fantasy, and obviously inviting all of you guys to join our leagues, and we'll get into all that eventually. But a lot of fun stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for this game week. Kimo, any parting words?
No, I think I'm looking forward for the World Cup just to do something different than to look away from my wildcard team. That's gonna be refreshing, getting some quality football. And I'm gonna be in Egypt from the middle of November up until Jan, I think. So I'll be back right after the World Cup. So I'll be taking a break from you guys, but I'll be watching from the other side, cheering on the content and cheering and sharing in the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I will continue to create content as well. I know I have a video lined up where I'll go through my Game Week 1 team, Game Week 2, Game Week 3, basically every game week up until the World Cup break. I'm gonna make a standalone video on that. Kevin might do the same. Kimo might even do the same if we manage to do that during his time in Egypt. Yeah, I'm just...
to the beach. You're doing.
Yeah, you'll get some deserved time off and get some sun. You currently are in dark and sad Norway. So yeah.
Yes.
I know you're looking forward to going to Egypt, but anyways, that's it for us this week. Very happy to talk to you again, and we will look forward to talk to you again next week on Wednesday. So yeah, see ya. Bye bye.
Good for me.
Goodbye.
Bye.